Hello, thank you guys so much for having us. I want to say thank you to the EMAs for having us. As you just saw in our video, Mission Unstoppable is an educational show produced by the Hearst Media Production Group, the Gina Davis Institute of Gender and Media, and the If Then Initiative from Lyda Hill Philanthropies. And our show's goal is to highlight women making an impact in STEM fields, and also to inspire young girls to follow their passion of STEM into a career that can build a better, more environmentally conscious world. We want to change the narrative about what it means to be a STEM innovator, to close the gender gap in these careers, and showcase how sustainability and STEM go hand in hand, both in front of and behind the camera. So, joining me today are three incredible members of our team. We have Nicole Small, the CEO of Lyda Hill Philanthropies. And she's another executive producer of the show. We have Fig O'Reilly, who's a correspondent. We've been sending her out into the field to interview a bunch of women for the show for the past 5 seasons. And finally, we have Crystal Dilworth, aka Dr. Brain on our show. She's a neuroscientist and science communicator who has spent 6 years teaching our audience all about their brains and how they operate. So thank you guys so much for joining us. And we're here to talk about how representation in media can impact the real world, both in terms of gender parity and sustainability. So the first question I have for all of you guys is to set the scene is, why is it important to show representation in STEM, both for women and sustainability, to young women?
Let me go first. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you all so much for having us here today. We're really excited to talk about the show and talk about some of the work we're doing. As Miranda said, I'm Nicole Small with Lyda Hill Philanthropies. We are a group based in Texas, and we co-founded an initiative a few years ago called the If Then Initiative. And that was started because we believe that having kids, and particularly little girls everywhere, see people that look like them doing things that are really cool and are going to change the world is really important. As Gina Davis always says, if you can see it, you can be it. And so we knew that if we could create media, content, experiences, opportunities through the If Then Initiative, we knew that we would have opportunities to inspire kids to change the world. So why it matters is because whether it's climate change or COVID or cancer, there are definitely a few problems in this world. Did y'all notice that lately? Just a few. We won't talk about most of them. But we know that we need all the brains at the table to solve those problems. And so we need kids everywhere getting inspired and excited and knowing and seeing amazing women like this and some amazing women that you've already seen today and that you're about to see, that they can do those things in the world. And so that's why we launched If Then. It's why we launched Mission Unstoppable, which is in its 6th season. We actually just got some amazing numbers. So by the way, if you're wondering if it's worth doing and if it works, we just finished our 156th episode. We featured over 300 women scientists. We have almost 1.5 million social followers, including almost 1 million on TikTok. So if you don't think STEM is cool, we're here to change your mind today, because STEM, it turns out, is highly commercial too. So We've had over 500 million teen girls watch the show. We know that 1 in 20 of those, 20% of those, 1 in 5, watch 22 minutes of those shows and say, oh my gosh, I could do that too. They completely change their view of what they can do in the world. So that's why we have to do these things, because we need to solve all the world's problems and we need little girls everywhere. Yeah, we're solving them all today, by the way. So that's why we do it.
I really love this question because I relate to it personally. Before I started as a correspondent on Mission Unstoppable, I was what is called a NASA data nut. So as a data science specialist that was working with NASA in an open innovation program. And I got my start in STEM, you know, as one of those little girls that you're talking about, Nicole. I grew up traveling all over in a military family with no real exposure to science, technology, engineering, and math. Back then it wasn't STEM, right? But I knew that my favorite subject in school was math. And it took a teacher of mine in the 9th grade to notice, hey, you like this subject, you're pretty decent at it, and he pointed me in the right direction, and that direction was access to opportunity in the form of a summer program for inner city students of color. They targeted young women, and it was an opportunity to spend the summers of my high school years at UC Berkeley with other kids just like me, learning nothing but science, technology, engineering, and math. Now, to 14-year-old me, that did not sound like a lot of fun. But I applied to the program at the behest of a teacher, and I'm so glad because if I did not, I probably would not be sitting here today before all of you, having worked on this show for 5 years. It means so much to me to travel all over the country and meet so many women who've had similar experiences as to mine, but also different. You know, there's some common threads that you lean into and you learn a lot about their experiences as women in STEM, but the show really shows what it's like behind the scenes for so many women who work in a lot of different types of STEM jobs. And so there's everyone has their own vertical, but there's also a lot of differences in these jobs. And one of the most important things I have personally found is that when you peel back the layers, when you pull back the curtain and demystify what it actually looks like to work and be in one of these jobs, you're reaching young people, not just girls, okay, and showing them, hey, this is what this job actually looks like. I remember even graduating from college. I got a systems engineering degree in undergrad, and I did not know what the first job I could apply to was. Do I apply to a systems engineering role? There's a lot of other jobs to apply to. And so even showcasing, hey, this is a path, this is how this works, is gonna be so important for other students, other young people that were like me when I was a student, not necessarily having that firsthand experience maybe with a parent or someone in their own community.
Yeah, I love that idea of STEM being a path. I think of it kind of as a toolbox, right? So as a neuroscientist, and especially on the show as Dr. Brain, like helping both the kids in the audience, but also, you know, the parents that are doing chores in the back kind of understand how the hardware that they're walking around with works. Like, I understand that not everyone that sees a show is going to be a scientist. But guess what? STEM isn't a profession or a personality. It is just a toolbox of knowledge that you can use to be as creative as you want, to create the change that you want to see. You know, and it's accessible to everyone. And every single person in this room has an aspect of their personal interest that is related to science, technology, engineering, and math. And I think one of the things that we do on the show is show that variety, show the different ways that you can find yourself into a profession, and show so many different ways that you can connect with those topics without being a science person, which I hate that label so much, but that's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, I'm not a science person, and I love watching you guys on the show because, like, I've learned so much from watching you guys, so I definitely agree. Okay, the next question is, how have we seen the conversation around STEM representation and sustainability in media change over time? And are there any persistent myths or misconceptions that you wish that we could do away with?
Well, I think the good news is it's changing for the positive. I think the work that we're doing with this show, and I think work that others probably in this room and the community are doing, are really starting to change the perception of how people think of STEM. You know, it used to be that if you asked kids to draw a picture of a scientist, they would draw a picture of a guy in a white lab coat and a white lab, look kind of like Albert Einstein, who, by the way, thank goodness for Albert Einstein, right? Genius. But when you do those tests today, kids are changing what they show a scientist looks like. It might be a marine biologist. It might be an astronaut. You know, when you ask a kid what an engineer is, they don't always draw a train. So it turns out that kids are learning there's lots of different kinds of engineering. So we're definitely seeing positive progress. At Light of Hill Philanthropies, in partnership with Gina Davis Institute, we did a study 5-6 years ago, our first one called Portray Her 1.0. We just redid it, Portray Her 2.0. And what we did is we went out and we looked at how women and girls are portrayed in STEM in the media, television, because again, we're in a room where we don't have to explain to everybody here that what people see is what they think they can be, whether it's on museum walls, whether it's in textbooks, whether it's, you know, on TikTok, whether it's on TV. Wherever you're seeing things, we're sending messages. And so some good news from that study was that we saw a 20% increase to almost 75% of girls and women who want to see more STEM characters on TV. So they want to see more of that happening. That's a lot of people who want to see that, which, again, did I mention it's commercial? It's not just like STEM TV, right? So I think that's really important. We also saw a 45% increase in STEM characters of color, which has also been amazing over the last 15 years. So again, everybody that watches TV sees someone that looks like them. The statistic that we still have room to improve, which I hope everybody in this room helps us do, is men still outnumber women characters 2-to-1 in STEM careers. So there's still a lot of opportunity to adjust that. But we do know that there's some real blockbuster movies out there like Black Panther and Gravity and some of those kinds of shows that we can change that narrative. And so I think that we're definitely making progress, and we're going to continue to make progress. And, look, science jobs are fun, right? I mean, I think the reason everyone's here today is because people want to make the world a better place inherently. And science is a great way to do that. Again, whether you're focused on climate or curing cancer, and telling these stories with these amazing women is a great way for people to get excited and understand, gosh, I too could make a difference. I just didn't know how to do that, but now I have a pathway.
I think when it comes to representation, the conversation has changed a lot in a great way, but there's still so much room for improvement. A really great thing, like a couple years ago, there was a post that I made on Twitter, now known as X. And it was a picture from a segment that I did. I interviewed a horticulturist, and her name was Lachelle Spencer, and she works down at NASA Kennedy in Florida. And we had a really lovely discussion about our hair. I was wearing cornrows at the time. I have big curly hair right now, it's straight. But we had a wonderful conversation just about wearing our hair, how we love to wear it as Black women. And I posted about it, and it blew up in a very interesting way. And there were two things that I gleaned from this blow up of that post. And it was about how important it is to just occupy space and be yourself. How important it is for young girls. I had parents, messaging me, "Hey, I showed this to my daughter. This was beautiful. You're having a conversation about taking up space." And there was a movie that came out a couple of years ago, Hidden Figures, talking about taking a fictional movie, but about real people. Katherine Johnson, these human computers, as they were called at NASA, and really it just showed, a lot has changed in a short period of time, but there's still more conversation to be had. And I think just being able to start conversations about, hey, being able to stand here, show up as yourself, and show other people that you can be yourself in spaces like labs, right? And own that. I think that's a really beautiful thing as well. So there's still work to be done, but I think the fact that we're having these conversations even now is really important.
Okay, I could do like a whole hour and a half answering this question, so I'm going to try and keep it focused on the whole point of this event. So I guess the myth that I would want to do away with is like the right brain, left brain myth. Like if you're a left brain person, you're creative, or I don't even remember which one is which because that's how little stock I put in that science. And if you're a right brain person, you're like very analytical, or the other way around. And this is not a plug for season 7, but I do address that in a Dr. Brain segment. So watch on Saturday mornings and you will see. But I think that's partially where this "I am not a science person" comes from. And you are limiting your identity by placing yourself in that box. And the act of science and engineering is creative, it is collaborative, and it's often being done for the purpose of social good or improvement. And when this is actually taken into account in education programs, Harvey Mudd College completely changed the way that they were addressing their engineering undergraduate programs, making sure that it was case study based, that everyone was working in teams, and that they were working on a socially relevant problem. And guess what? 50-50 gender parity in their graduating class. That was all they had to do. And this is what science looks like in the real world. So that is one of the myths that I hope we can get away with, and we are certainly addressing on the show personally. Thank you.
Now I can't wait to see that segment. What can the media do to make an impact with their own programming, and how can representation be further improved?
Well, it's funny you ask. I think it's a lot of what we've been talking about. I think just being intentional, not necessarily accidental about things. I think everybody in this room probably has the opportunity to participate in storytelling or you wouldn't be here. And I think, right, people connect with stories more than they necessarily connect with, we were talking about telling, showing, not telling. Yeah. I think there's a real opportunity for media to tell these incredible stories. I mean, as I think Crystal just said, people do want to make a difference, right? And I think that this idea that you every day have an opportunity to do some math, do some science, and maybe make the world a better place. So I think the media, it's really important that we show all of these amazing things happening, all the different kinds of people doing that work. If Then initiative that we started, I mean, we would love to offer to everyone in this room. We have 125, you saw it a little bit in the video, we have 125 amazing women scientists doing really cool things. Crystal's one of them. Obviously, we just saw Raywyn Grant walk out. She'll be talking next. She's also one of our amazing scientists, and you'll have a chance to hear from her. She's one of the wild women going next. I think that, knowing that you've got access to that amazing talent and those kinds of amazing women that can tell stories is really important. And I think being intentional with your storytelling and making sure that you're always being thoughtful about what you're showing, right? And I think when you're telling those stories, making sure that everybody in that story is doing something interesting and that you're really representing all kinds of people is really, really important. And also, I'd say be creative, right? With our If Then initiative, we did a statue exhibit. We did the largest collection of statues of women anywhere in the world at one time ever. It was just a crazy idea that we did. And the media kind of joined in and helped us tell that story. That was something that we did not know, but we did a lot of reading. And we found out that there were hardly any real statues of real women. And we 3D printed them and threw them up on the National Mall. And be creative like that. 5 million people saw that, right? So I think thinking about all your access to media and what does that mean and all of your ways to tell stories that are visual are really important, whether it's TikTok, whether it's TV, whether it's streaming, whether it's a statue, whether it's a museum wall. People in this room are telling stories, and I'd say just be really cognizant and intentional when you're telling those stories.
I think it's so important to showcase multi-dimensional women, especially women in STEM. So women in STEM often get stereotyped, right? Glasses, zero other interests, and that's just simply not true. There are women that have so many interests. They have, full careers, they're mothers, they're participants in their community. And I think I would personally love to see more stories that humanize women working in STEM, really showing what that looks like. I think when it comes to stereotypes, breaking those stereotypes down and really just showcasing people what it looks like to work in STEM. For me, I started out as an engineer, and in 2019, I became the first woman of color to win Miss Universe Ireland. And one of the things that I talked about most is how it should be okay to be a woman who's in a beauty pageant and also be an engineer. You really can break that mold.
You don't look like an engineer, Fig.
Yes, I do. Okay.
We'll get her a white lab coat and some glasses.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to storytelling, just really breaking that mold is really important. And I think humanizing these women, showcasing their dynamic stories. But also, and another point I want to make here is intersectionality is really important. Acknowledging the very different setbacks and obstacles that all sorts of different women face. There's no one way to be a woman in STEM, and there's a lot of different obstacles that various women have to overcome in order to even have the careers that they do. And not all journeys look the same. And so I think being cognizant of that is really important when showcasing stories as well.
As usual, Fig has set me up perfectly for my answer. So on the topic of sort of showing what's possible, a good mentor of mine in organizational psychology used to use the Sistine Chapel as an example all the time of an example of what's amazing about humans. It's because we have the opportunity to imagine something that has never existed before, communicate it to other people, get them excited about it, and then work over generations to make that thing happen, right? It wasn't the first people that started work on the Sistine Chapel that ended up finishing it off. This was a vision that got passed down, and communication and storytelling was a necessary aspect of that. And, the tools that we use to create new realities have changed, but the need to imagine what the future looks like in a positive way has not. So now, if you're a software engineer, every line of code is a vote for an imagined future. You are putting your imagination of what the future looks like into whatever it is that you're creating. And so for the worlds that all of you create, really feel the responsibility for, telling the story of what the future could look like if it was more integrated, if we had, women with intersectionality and diverse interests depicted on screen. And oh my gosh, what if we had a man in a decision-making capacity that actually listened to the woman on his team and took her advice the first time? Right? Like, I know they say like originality is dead in Hollywood, but I really feel like that one has legs. But even on like the climate and sustainability side, right? This is what we're talking about. We're talking about STEM being a toolbox that you can use to affect change, that science is collaborative, creative, and, involves the entire community. And then now we have the storytelling capability to imagine what it would look like if we had solved some of these problems, if we had actually shifted a system in which things could be more sustainable, and we took the planet's health into consideration with some of the things that we do. So I will stop there, but obviously I'm very passionate about this, so if you want to come and talk to me later, I'm happy to take out the several soapboxes that I have on the topic. Thank you.
What is one of your favorite sustainability stories from the show? Which one from Mission Unstoppable would be your favorite?
That's like picking your favorite kid. It never really works out that well to say that out loud, especially when you have some of your amazing scientists sitting with you. I mean, I think obviously we've got amazing women sitting on this couch. You're going to hear from Raywyn Grant next. She's pretty cool. As I said, we've featured over 300 women scientists doing amazing things to change the world. So they're all my favorite.
This is really tough because I have met some seriously incredible, cool women. And so I won't say it's my favorite, but it's one that I really enjoyed and really loved. Another segment actually down at NASA Kennedy that I did was with Annie Meyer, who's an engineer, and she is working on the Oscar program, which is specifically, they're working to turn solid material into gas. No intermediate step. And this Oscar program, yes, I see some inquisitive looks like, whoa, how does this work? Well, you can watch it on Mission Unstoppable. It's a really incredible program. They're focusing on sustainability, but what I think is really interesting here is also, you have the space industry. NASA is working on these really incredible there's a lot of incredible research being done, and it is for space exploration. However, there's this human component, right, where it is really about how you can apply this technology to what is also happening here on Earth. The applications of a program like Oscar, it really is endless. To take solid material and turn it directly into gas. I mean, I can think of so many applications for this. And so I just think it was such an incredible segment, being able to meet an engineer who's doing the work of some seriously awesome research.
I feel like I need to give a plug for one of the segments. So I will say, look up Kristen Lear, who's a real life bat girl. She dresses like a bat. She knows everything there is to know about bats. She works for Bat Conservation International. So everything you would ever want to know about bats, she is literally your girl. So look her up on YouTube. But I think that my favorite part about like sustainability in this show is when I get the call sheet and I see like, this is a sustainable show. Bring your water bottle, there will be no trash after, for lunch. And all of those reminders that we're, as a production, like trying to do the right thing. I think that's my favorite part about sustainability and Mission Unstoppable, especially when you think about like, okay, how did film start, right? Like when Edison had like the kinetograph, he didn't have artificial lights. So, you know, he had to make a movie studio where the ceiling opened up so he could like manipulate the natural light and use that in his production. Like that's a really sustainable production, right? And now when we're talking about the impact that energy has on our industry and where we are generating it, I think that even the little things, like reminding everyone to bring their water bottles and, you know, not creating additional trash and those types of things is the right start. And we just need to continue doing more as an industry.
I just really want to quickly say I love what you're saying there, because it's a reminder of just the very small ways that you know, sustainability, we cover it on the show because, you know, it's all about STEM and science. Environmental science is a part of that. Sustainability is a part of that. And yes, there's a way to go about showcasing that on the show, but it's really about those small little changes that you make behind the scenes, small consistent efforts to do those things. And I think it's a natural extension of what we're showcasing on the show. We're able to also do that behind the scenes as well. And so that's something that has been really lovely about this season, you know, being on the road and incorporating some of those practices.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody here has any questions for anyone. If you do.
Oh, okay, I definitely do. So I'm currently in graduate school. Sorry. Okay, I didn't know they were gonna do the mic thing. Okay, I said this earlier. I'm currently in graduate school, and it's kind of a weird time where like DEI is super under attack in all areas of the nation, but especially in higher education. And as somebody who has multiple underserved identities, having access to resources that are kind of served that way has been really helpful. And so I'm kind of worried about the future of like having access to those resources and funding, and how fellow women who may be inspired by all show or just hopefully a societal change will want to go into higher ed and can't access resources or overcome systemic barriers because the funding is being cut. So I guess I'm just kind of wondering, like, is there going to be any future programming on the show that talks about like support services or different like women-led organizations that are going to be really helpful for like, you know, filling that need basically as we struggle with this issue?
Nicole, I feel like I want to throw this to you, but I'm going to say something first. So I'm working as a mentor with the diversity and chemistry student group at Caltech, and we have exactly this question. They have exactly this question, and I've been working from the science communication side with them on how to make the case for what they need to independent funding opportunities and philanthropists that have the opportunity to support where maybe the rug has been pulled out from under us in certain ways.
Now, I think this is a really important question right now, and I think that we are thinking about this all day, every day. And I don't, clearly, if we all had the solution, we probably wouldn't be sitting in this room in this moment. But I do think that we all have an opportunity to continue down the path that we are on. And while I imagine it is frustrating, and we're frustrated, we fund a lot of science. And I think that what you're going to see is more people like Lyda, who I work for in our organization, stepping up, because the problems are not going away, right? Like, did cancer get cured this week? Did I miss that? Did anyone? No? Did we solve climate change? No. So I think the problems are not going away. So I would encourage you to get creative, as Crystal's saying, and think about other resources, because I do think that for those people like our organization and many others who are committed to solving these problems, this too shall pass, and we are not going to give up, and these problems are not going to go away. And we are so grateful that you're in graduate school. We hope that you stick with it. We believe that you are going to be the one that changes these things. And so I think we're just all going to have to work a little bit harder, work a little bit more creatively. And I do think you're going to see more and more people. I mean, I don't know if anyone read today that Bill Gates said he's going to give all his foundation away in the next 20 years. That's not insignificant, by the way. And he's really focused on things like science. So, I mean, that's, I think, $200 billion or something. And so, well, and you're going to see more and more of that right now, because as the rest of the world is changing around us, like I said, these problems aren't going away, and science continues, and discoveries are built on what happened yesterday, and we can't afford to stop making those discoveries. So I think that please stay inspired. Please stay with it. I'm sure Crystal's going to give you my email and my phone number when she's done. But I think that there's going to be ways to fill these gaps. We have to. We have no choice. And I think, again, for everyone in this room that's part of storytelling, you might change one story that you were going to tell today and make it a little bit different, and you might inspire the next person. Some kid might be watching your show or your story, and they might be the one that says, I didn't think I could do that, but now I'm going to be the one, and they cure cancer one day. And they're going to look, and this is what we hope happens with our show. We hope that some little girl looks back and says, I saw this show, I saw Dr. Brain, I cured Alzheimer's because I did not know that was an option. So it's true, right? That's what we all hope that we're doing. And I would encourage everybody, as we said, there's little things we can all do right now. We may not be able to solve all the big federal funding issues, but we all can make a difference, and we can continue to inspire people and use the tools that we have. So she'll give you my phone number.
Well, thank you all so much for having us, and thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much.